Amen. All right, so we are doing a series right now that is on First and Second Kings. It's kind of in a series that we've been that's it that we've been doing. That is kind of these Old Testament books of the Bible, and this one is called Foolish Wisdom, and it's specifically looking at King Solomon, Elijah, and Elisha, and basically the First Kings starts off kind of when the kingdom of Israel is doing okay, but David's kingship did not end well. And Solomon comes in and he's like, oh, we're going to rebuild this thing. It's going to be amazing and all that. And he ends up going, my father was never able to build the temple, but I will build it. And the problem with that is that one of the things about God that's important is that he is the God who rescued you out of Egypt. That they are to remember that God took them out of slavery. He took them out of all of that. And Solomon is standing up in all of his wisdom. He goes, let's build the temple. And he goes, you need to be enslaved to do that. Yeah, I'm going to enslave you and you and you and you. And he basically enslaves his own people to build the temple. All right? It's not good. That's not good. He's acting more like Pharaoh than anything else, and a servant of God's people. And I imagine God's face is all red because he's like, come on, guys. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. And what we see is the outcropping of that they've forgotten about who God is, and that Solomon is kind of lifting himself up in more grandeur because of this, that the kingdom just deteriorates and falls. It fractures in civil war and is all just falls apart, and it's just a husk of what it used to be. And we are introduced now to King Ahab. And Ahab is described in the book of Kings as doing more evil than anyone ever around him. That's like, at some point, I'm sure some people have written that same thing about me. That Pastor Chris, he has done more evil than any, like that. That's, that's what King Ahab, but the biggest thing that King Ahab did is because of the legacy of Solomon and how it was all just for show, that not the Christianity, but you know what I mean. The worship of God was all just for show. He was actually acting like Pharaoh. That there was nothing to grab a hold of. And by the time we get to King Ahab, everyone's worshiping just whatever. And the biggest thing they're worshiping is Baal or Baal. Baal is the easier thing to say. Baal is the more correct thing to say. Choose your own adventure on that one. And so Baal. And so today is all about the Battle of Baal Bluff. One of the best titles I've ever written, if I'm being honest here. Such a good title here. It is. Because it's about Elijah and the prophets of Baal, and how in this great showdown between them. And we love a good showdown, don't we? Like that. That's just like you got Clint Eastwood, like his Dirty Harry. It's like, go ahead and make my day, right? Like that's like, I remember being a child when that came out, and like there's all these great showdowns. We love a good showdown, and that's what this story is all about. It's what Jan read when she read the book in front of you guys just a little bit ago. Like that she read about this showdown. And it's fascinating for what it tells us, because the main idea of the showdown between the prophets of Baal and Elijah and his God, the God who rescues people out of Egypt, is to ask this question: are you humbly trusting your true God? Right? Or are you just trying to make it happen? Right? Because there's tough times that they're facing. One of the things that Elijah had done is he had come to Ahab and he said, it's not going to rain for a long time. And it doesn't rain for 3.5 years. It's not going to rain for a long time. This is key because of who the god Baal was. Baal was a fertility god. Now, as Americans, we hear fertility God and we're like, I didn't realize we're talking about sexy things in church today. And all that stuff. Like, that's not what that means. It's all about like the rain and like the fruitfulness of the earth. And so he was kind of a rain god, is what he was. So this rain god was over there. And so his place that he hung out on was Mount Carmel, but we're going to get to that. So because of this drought, famine hit the land. But I need to tell you something about famine. You're ready for this? In the Bible, but also just in general in society, whenever you see famine, it's not just because of the weather. Oftentimes, that's Kevin making noise, don't worry about it. Like that, he's trying to make it cooler in here. Like that, he knows my sermon's 45 minutes today. And so that's yeah, that's the oh man, I forgot my place. Let's start over. Like that's so the famine is also coded for bad kinging, bad leadership, which is actually kind of why famines occur. We saw the Dust Bowl, right? You saw the Dust Bowl in the U.S. was bad policy, which created that. It wasn't so much the lack of rain, but it was bad policy, bad farming, and all that stuff that created the Dust Bowl. And so you have Ahab has kind of caused this famine to go on to here. So creating the story even more, you have Jezebel, King Ahab's wife, and they cannot stand anyone that goes against them. Right? They cannot stand any of it, and they also kind of can't stand their own people. One of the things they do, and this, if you want to look it up, that's fine. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 5. I forgot to put a slide about it in here. But it says this, that during the famine, he orders his people, it's like, oh, go keep the horses and the mules. Keep them alive. We don't want to kill them. Help them find water and green grass to eat. And you look at that, you're like, Ahab doesn't sound like that. He wants to keep the poor ponies alive. Like he's trying to keep Seabiscuit alive. That's nice of him, right? Like that's what he's doing. That's not what he's doing. He's finding fertile areas still. And you've got to put your mind back into what was going on back then. Horses just weren't animals. Horses were the tanks of the day. And so he was prioritizing making sure that there was gas in the tanks, in the jets, in the implements of war over and above feeding his own people. You see it? Like I don't care about them. We're going to make sure that we keep the war machine going. And if anyone would ever go against him, off with his head. And so he just surrounds himself with all of these, he's like a puppeteer with all these yes men that are just doing whatever he says out of that. And if anyone gets up, like, get rid of them and make them run away to me. Yes men culture is no good, is it? But the problem is that we can find ourselves falling to that same yes man culture. Even your pastor can follow into that. I know. I'm surprised as well. But we can too. When we start hearing opinions or other things, they're like, ooh, I don't like that. And we throw it aside, right? I don't want to deal with the difficulty of it. So Ahab and Jezebel are killing all these prophets. They're killing all these things. And they're just throwing away because of someone they disagree with. Are you humbly trusting in your God with the faith, or are you trying through your zealous nature to make it happen? Right? That's what we see in our reading. So let's talk about Mount Carmel for a second with the Battle of Baal Bluff. Why am I calling this Baal Bluff here today? Mount Carmel, you got to understand something about the geography of Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel is this big mountain around other mountains right on the edge of the Mediterranean Sea. And when you know what happens, right? You get all this warm, humid air that comes across the sea, and it hits that mountain range, and that warm air goes straight up. What happens above that mountain? It creates a rain and a cloud, right? Have you ever seen a picture of like Mount St. Helens or Mount Rainier or anything like that without a cloud on top of it? No. This is why. Because they hit up there. And so when these people are worshiping a fertility god and they see the clouds are always forming there, and they would form bigger, and then they go over and wash the ground. They're like, the god of fertility, Baal, like, lives on that mountain. Like, that's what Mount Carmel is. And Elijah goes, it's time for a showdown. It's time for a showdown to show you who the true God is. Let's go to Mount Carmel. And you guys bring all your best prophets. You bring it all. We'll bring two bulls, one for you, one for me, and we'll see which God consumes the sacrifice all the more. And because the faith in Israel was nothing then. It was nothing. Elijah here in verse 30 had to repair the altar. He had to repair it. And so they come and they gather all these things up. And Elijah goes, I'll even let you guys go first. And they start praying to their god Baal. They start praying for hours and hours. They're praying and they're getting louder and louder. And then Elijah begins to taunt them. When Jan was reading, did you catch the taunts in there? Don't worry, I have it right here, right? So about noon, Elijah began to taunt them. It's like, shout louder. Maybe he can't hear you. Surely he is a god. He's got good ears, doesn't he? Perhaps he's in deep thought or busy or traveling. Maybe he's sleeping. Go louder, wake him up. All right. Some of you know the joke that's written here. There's a joke in here. You're like, no, there's not. Like that. Does anyone know the joke that's in here, that's in the room? Oh, first service wins. Like first, not even the corner back there? No? Okay, good. We're learning. She does know it. She does know it. Like that. That's good job. A+. Like that. So to everyone else, like when Elijah begins to taunt them, our English translations clean up a Hebrew idiom here because they don't like it when you have potty humor around in here. So they clean it up. And he says, surely he is a god. Perhaps he's in deep thought or busy. That is an idiom for perhaps he's on the toilet. like that. That is what, it's not they didn't have toilets back then, but you get perhaps he's behind that one rock. Like that's over there. Like that's what he's saying. He's like making fun of them, and they're like, no, like that. Don't make fun of us. And they start doing it all the more. I imagine Ahab is like, we need to get rid of that guy's head, and like that's what he's saying. And then he has them they could never do it. And he's like, all right, let me take over here. And he's like, all right, bring all the water. And he's got these 4 giant pitchers of water, and they cover the sacrifice with the water, and then they cover it again, and then they cover it a 3rd time with the water. It's almost like a resurrection metaphor going on here, but we won't get into that right now. And then Elijah prays. Now remember, all these guys have been praying forever. How long does Elijah pray for? Let's read it. At the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, Lord, the God of Abraham. Whenever you see capital L-O-R-D, like that, all capitalized, that's God's name. That's Yahweh. We think it's God's name. But they're honoring the Hebrew traditions by doing that. Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and I am your servant, and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so that these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, the soil, and licked up the water in the trench. How long was that prayer of Elijah's? 20 seconds? It's 83 words in Hebrew. Like 20 seconds, like all that stuff? And then after this amazing thing happens, Elijah goes to the edge of the bluff and he prays in these like 7 small times, and this cloud of rain begins to form, and then the rushing rain comes over. The drought is over. And Elijah yells over to Ahab, "Hitch up your chariot, O Ahab, before the rain stops you. The true God is here. You better get home before you can't get home because of so much rain." What's the point of all this? It's a cool story. Like, it's like the showdown. Like, you can like see the guns or the horses and all that stuff, right? Like the question, like, I think the point of all of this is it's kind of shown before this whole showdown in verse 21 of 1 Kings 18 that Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between 2 opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." Like stop just wavering around. In other words, what he's saying is like, are you humbly trusting in your God? Like Ahab had eroded all of this faith that's over there because he was just seeking after the next big thing. So much so that the altar in Carmel was all broken down. We need to watch out for this too. Because I hear this all the time from people. There's consternation about, oh my goodness, we're losing everything. Everything's going to think we need to re-up all of this stuff. We need to bring back new zealousy and all this stuff. And then what we do is we lift up our idols and we say ridiculous things like this. We're losing everything. If we can just elect the right person, then everything will be great. If we just have the correct zealousy, then everything will be all right. And so we do that, and we view the other people that believe differently than us on those things, that they are the evil, right? We're not humbly trusting. We're believing that our zealousy saves. And every day we click on wherever we get our entertainment news from, and we just entrench ourselves all the more. And we're saying that there's hope found in any of that. There's no hope in any of that. The hope is simply in what Jesus has done. That it's not about how zealous you are, how good you are at reading the Bible, how many times that you've been to church. Listen, I really appreciate you guys coming to church, but this isn't going to be what saves you. And you're listening to this sermon right now like, Lord knows that. Like that's like you're like, well, it might, like this is the sacrifice, right? Like that's, the best preaching of mine isn't going to save you. Like this is all stuff we do just to be together. None of that stuff is ever going to save you. When we finally are able to be zealous enough, it's not going to do a thing. When Elijah prays, it was just 83 words. Even Jesus talks about, don't listen to those guys that make shows of all their long prayers, wearing their robes that are fancy and red, right? Like, no. What he says is small, simple prayers. Because we know where God truly is. And that God didn't come into the grand. He came into the midst of the small manger scene. He came in the midst of the smallness of the world back then. And he didn't ascend into powerful thrones or any of those things. It was all this small stuff, and he came to the cross of Calvary and died in this small way. Those prophets of Baal were beating themselves and cutting themselves, trying to bleed to prove to their God that they were worthy of being saved. Jesus already died for you. You're good. You can rest. You can rest. You can just say those small prayers. They don't have to be grandiose or great. You don't have to seek greatness in anything else. You don't have to seek power in anything else. You don't even have to be correct. You can simply just go, Christ died, Christ rose, and Christ will come again. And there are days when I'm not sure if I have that all together. Even in those days, I know that God still saves me. It's completely opposite to the wisdom of the world. It's foolishness. But that's why we call it a foolish wisdom. And it's such good news. And we'll end right there. Let's say a prayer. God, we thank you that you are here with us. Lord, help us to see that it's not about us saving ourselves, but it's about humbly seeing that you are the one who saves us. And Lord, may we take that and give that good news to so many people. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. And we'll sing our sermon song.